Welcome to the Lead Gen Hustler Show, where today we're thrilled to have Steven Haggerty, the strategic mind and founder behind GrowLeady. With an extensive background in business coaching and a unique approach to lead generation, Steven has transformed the outreach game for numerous clients worldwide. His journey from podcasting daily to founding a lead generation powerhouse showcases a blend of innovation, dedication, and a deep understanding of his entrepreneurial landscape. Let's dive into Steven's story, exploring the insights, strategies, and experiences that fuel his success. Steven, it is a pleasure to have you on the show, and it's going full circle. I was interviewed through you three years ago, I believe, when I had an agency.
4 years, yeah.
Crazy. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's we should compare the podcasts afterwards and compare our stories because they're probably quite similar as well.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's crazy. You're now 2 years into your journey, from what I understand, as well.
Three years. I think we are. Yeah, three
years running.
4 years. I don't know, man.
Oh wow,
flies.
I think this
is we're coming into our 4th year. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So
to kick off, should we jump into just sharing a little bit about what you do so everyone can understand?
Yeah, of course. I'm the founder of GrowLeady. We are a cold outreach specialist. We focus on cold email and LinkedIn outreach, predominantly serving clients in the US, Canada, UK, mainly sort of the main English-speaking regions, a little bit of other parts of Europe. But as we all know, with cold outreach in some places of Europe, you just don't want to be cold emailing. So yeah, that's us. We're nice and simple. That's our sort of our motto. We try and keep things as simple as possible.
That's awesome. And yeah, really, really cool. I definitely am pinging you for advice all the time on how to be able to do things.
We got a good little group going.
Exactly. Group. So to get into it, I'd just love to maybe take a step back to how you actually just got into the entire space. So from what I understand, you started your first business at 13. Tell me about that.
Sure. So I've always been in business. Literally, I'm fortunate, right? So my father had his own businesses. My mum has always been running her own businesses. My brother runs his own business. So, like, grown up in a very entrepreneurial household. My mum was always saying the phrase, there is no what's the phrase? It's like, do or do not. There is no try, right? And that really kind of bed into me exactly what I wanted to do. So when I was 13, started doing sort of website graphic design, bit of e-com drop shipping back in the day before it was hustle broed out of the existence. And then throughout the life, that was, I don't know, 16, 17 years ago now. And I've always thought in the last probably 5-6 years, I want to own an agency. Wasn't quite sure what. And when GrowLeady first started, we kind of just tried to do a bit of everything. We offered ads, we offered cold outreach, trying to find our way in the agency world. As you know, it's a busy place, and some don't stick around for long. And I didn't want to be an agency that wasn't around for a long time. So we stumbled upon it. Cold outreach. I've always done cold LinkedIn outreach for all my businesses anyway. And then cold email was that next step for me. So it was quite a natural progression to where we are now.
That's awesome. And so when did you actually get into launching and starting the agency?
So it was one of those moments where I was sat on the couch with my wife and I just thought, yeah, now's the time. I've been business coaching for the last probably about 6-7 years. And that was, that's going great. I don't do as much as I used to, just because the agency side of things taken over a little bit. But I wanted to do that agency stuff, that agency world, and I just thought now or never. It was the right time. Cold email had kind of come back in terms of a buzz, a little bit of a buzz. So I hopped on that bandwagon a little bit. As I said, I've always done LinkedIn outreach anyway. So it was one of those situations where I put some feelers out there. Our first couple of clients were my coaching clients, because go for your low-hanging fruit, right? Go for the people that you think, okay, I might be able to help them. Experimented with them. It worked out great. And then from there, we just started to put systems in place, teams in place, everything that the agency effectively is today.
That's awesome. And before we jump into actually diving more into the agency, I just want to go a little bit back to the podcast, because that was really impressive. And I remember back, a few years ago, you were doing Founder 365, the challenge to interview 365 founders within each day of the year. So like, how did that go?
Mental.
Yeah,
man. Similar answer. You can probably tell from this that I'm someone that doesn't need to think about things much. It was something, I think it was like the 22nd of December, and I thought, you know what, I want to challenge myself for that year, and I just came up with it. I was at my in-laws' house, and I just came up with it. I'm going to try and interview a founder every day, and it was great. You know, I learned a hell of a lot from interviewing. I got some amazing people on, obviously yourself included there. And you know, I didn't hit 365, but actually what happened is the goal changed. It went from 365 people to actually, I want to have really quality conversations. And it got to that stage where I think it was halfway through, and I just thought, well, I had a couple of guests that I wasn't too happy with the conversation. And I just thought, you know what, I probably only got those on to try and hit that goal that I just kept pulled out of thin air. So I tweaked it and got far better quality guests on. The format got a little bit tighter. I loved the challenge. It definitely burnt me out though, because I was at the end of it, I was like, I'm going to carry on into sort of do a season 2. Season 2 hasn't transpired yet. It might, but also, you know, my values have changed a little bit. My motivation has changed a little bit since then as well.
That's awesome. And like, and then from that kind of span out, you were obviously the business consulting, and then eventually jumped into the agency. And then you said you went and you've actually tested your initial cold email on a couple of the individuals you were coaching with.
So we test our product offering with some coaching clients, just again because it's low hanging fruit, easy selling effectively, right? And it worked. We thought, you know what, if it works for us, then it can work for other people. And from there, I just focused down on who I want to work with. You know, that's changed as well over the last couple of years, as it always does, as we'll probably get into more in this conversation. But you know, you got to pivot, right? You got to pivot in terms of who you're serving, how you're serving them, what Google are announcing next month or the last month or whatever changes are coming up. That if you don't pivot, then you're going to be pretty much stuck.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what did like the initial kind of offering look like that you started off with when you started with those first clients, and then how has it evolved today? Because I see even on your site how you have the, you know, LinkedIn aspects, and you've leveraged different platforms as well. So yeah, it's interesting to understand the initial like email offering and how that's evolved.
Yeah. So we initially started off as not too dissimilar where it is now. That realistically, the only thing that's changed majorly is probably the price point, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah.
You know, when you just started out, you just want to get those first few clients in. We lowballed the price to get it working. From day one, I've always had a team as well. So I from day one, I was like, I want to get a team in. I want to build those systems out. And it allowed us to have a really like quick learning curve to make sure that we're fulfilling these customer or client requests and client needs as simple as possible. I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. So, you know, we don't overcomplicate the process. I see a lot of people out there that are putting all these other things into the mix that are kind of overcomplicated, and the results really aren't there to sort of back all that fluff up. So from day one with the clients, it was like, okay, who are you going after? What is your offer, and how and where is the best place to serve it? I think our first client was a LinkedIn outreach client, and they were an SEO agency going after sort of SaaS platforms. So pretty much your standard sort of requirement for a lot of people now. And yeah, we wrote all the copy in house. We got all the data in house. Everything we've done has always been in house. We've never really been stitched together by freelancers, because I didn't want that either. I wanted to get that culture, even though we're fully remote, try and get that culture, get the relationships going in terms of the team. And it, you know, I'm fortunate that it's worked out. I know for a lot of people it doesn't work out that way. And when we talk about clients and how we sort of onboard clients and and do all that kind of stuff. Again, it's all systemized now. It's all from, you know, we now have onboarding forms and all these other factors that come into it. On day one, it was just kind of like, who do you want to go after?
Yeah.
And then scribbling it down on a bit of paper and trying to remember exactly what they said on the call to then go and put those into, you know, search terms and gather that sort of data.
That's awesome though, to be able to, like, to our listeners, just share, like, you can be scrappy at the start and then worry about everything. Don't spend time at the beginning building out the craziest automated flows, because you just need to get started, get those results for the clients, understand what works, and then you can pivot from there and evolve.
100%.
So what does the model look like now that you have today in terms of like the offering? What's like a typical, I guess, client contract look like?
Yeah, so we're a purely retainer-based agency. So we don't do any performance-based stuff, any commission-based stuff. Again, just because we like to keep it simple. We don't want to add a load of fluff to it. We typically work with our clients for a minimum of 6 months. As other agency, there was this conversation that I know you were part of recently in terms of agency churn. Agency churn looks like 12 to 18 months is what clients normally stay for. And how our offering is now, like I said, we do setup fee, retainer based. We have slightly different pricing for LinkedIn outreach and cold email. We're slightly cheaper in terms of LinkedIn outreach than we are cold email. And that's purely because of a quantity size of things. Like cold email, you're very much unlimited in terms of what you can do. Our pricing changes slightly. If someone said to me, hey, can you manage, 200 domains and X amount of email addresses, that's when our pricing sort of changes. But from your standard, we always recommend people start off with sort of 10 domains, 3 email addresses on each domain. This is specifically for cold email. That's sort of enough volume for people to be able to test, or for us to be able to test and see where that low hanging fruit lies, and maybe even the tricky. A lot of clients don't move away from that either. Like that's enough volume for them to be able to cope. I think there's this illusion from people, and again, maybe this is helpful for people that are trying to start out, is that they have to sort of promise. You see it a lot in terms of ads and Facebook ads, Twitter. It's like, you've got to promise 300 leads a month and all this, like these wacky numbers that people are putting out there. And in reality, clients actually don't want to be on 300 calls a month, right? Obviously, it depends on the size team. So we have clients that we do all their sales team outreach for, and we have clients where it's sort of just them. But they want to have quality leads, not quantity leads. So we always say to them, listen, you're not going to get those sort of leads that you see on YouTube or you see on ads where people are really over delivering on or over promising on their delivery. We always have a little bit of reality check, and they appreciate it. Like if you ever get me on a sales call, I'm probably one of the most transparent people ever. I will tell people, like, yeah, this isn't for you. You shouldn't be doing this. Likewise, if they can just do it in-house themselves, I'll be like, look, you're 95% there already. You don't need an agency. Don't try and, often agencies are like these shiny objects, aren't they, that people feel like they have to hire or they have to work with. It's just not the case. Loads of people, the amount of information out there that you can do it yourself. The benefit of an agency is speed, optimization, management, all those other factors that come into play when you can just, like, we have all our leads ping into our client Slack channels when they do it, and that's one of the greatest dopamine hits that you can get. A nice little client, just ping, lead, and the clients know that they haven't really had to do anything to get those.
And then in terms of speaking about the clients, like who are you typically serving, and how is that evolving over time as well?
So we, contrary to probably a lot of other people, we have a really wide mix of clients. We have recruiting clients, we have SaaS clients, we have huge accountancy clients, we have a law AI client at the moment, a commercial cleaning client. Like we have a real mix of clients, and I've done that on purpose because, in a very selfish way, I don't want to get bored of working with the same sort of industry over and over. I love the fact that we can work with a expo building industry one day, or on the same day you're working with a AI tech company that have just created a tool for lawyers. For me, that's great, because again, it's what you said earlier. It's like, don't get hung up on things, right? It's your clients know their space better than you will ever do. And would I spend all my time fully learning about their space when they can tell me everything I need to know about that, and then anything else I need to know, we'll get back from the replies on the emails or the replies on the outreach, and then we can tweak from there. So yeah, we have a really wide space. Like I said, we cater to a lot, probably 90% of our clients are in the US. I'm based in the UK, as you know. We have clients in Canada, pretty much all over the place other than that. And I love it. I love the diversity, how diverse the clients are.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. And in terms of like because it's just interesting for our listeners to hear, what is a typical, I guess, pitch, or what is the typical narrative that you're saying to be able to say how you stand out as an agency and the value add that you're offering? Because I feel like using the word "we generate you meetings" or leads is like it's overused. Yeah,
100%. My big thing is we say that we sort of bolt on to you. Like, we don't want to be seen as an agency. We want to be seen as, you know, we're on the sales floor with you. That's why we have non-negotiables within communications, so Slack channels. We use Notion, which is a great tool. I know you use it as well for sort of all client tracking, lead tracking, copy tracking, everything like that. And having that extra involvement from that, it's effectively just a pre-frame, right? Having that pre-frame of saying to them, like, we want to bolt onto the team. You know, we help with other things as well. So if we see a client getting loads of leads, for example, and perhaps they're not closing them, which again, this is kind of out of your control as a lead gen agency, unless you're offering the sales call as well, but that's a whole nother offer. You know, we're saying to them, record your sales calls. You know, let us look at your sales calls. And obviously my coaching experience helps with that, because I can look at those and be like, okay, this might be where you're going wrong. Yeah. And it enables us to really form the relationship with clients that even if a campaign isn't going to plan, and let's not, you know, sugarcoat things, not every campaign hits it straight off the bat, or, you know, not every campaign performs how you kind of expect it to. You could have two identical clients and almost like identical offers, and they're performing different ways. It's just one of the things that I think is fun about this industry. But if you're not being able to communicate with your clients, and this is a lot of things that come when I speak to prospects and they say, hey, we worked with agencies before, the communication wasn't there. For me, you know, it's almost too easy it's too easy to over communicate now if you put in the right things in place. So that allows us to, like I said, build those relationships with clients in a probably slightly deeper way, and not in terms of removing away from that sort of just transactional relationship. Like, oh, you want a lead? Cool, this is how it is. That's why I prefer the retainer-based model as well, because you do get that slightly different relationship with clients.
Yeah, so basically, you're not just hey, we're generating you leads, ping, ping, ping. You're a partner, an actual. Yeah. Exactly. That's awesome. I think that's the standout, to be able to go in and go, hey, send me your sales call. We can advise on the approach to help you take it through to that next step. Or you are lacking here and we've identified this, we can assist in there. Or why don't we trial leveraging an alternative channel? Is super interesting to be able to leverage. And in terms of like your sales process, just before we jump into talking about like campaigns and process delivery, it'd just be good to just understand, what does that look like? Is that, you know, you're just doing your outreach and then having an initial call? Is there multiple steps? Like, what does that look like as a process?
So super lucky from, you know, a couple of years ago, one of my things was I want to make sure that we're doing well with SEO. So we get a lot of organic leads through just Googling cold email agencies. And then obviously we do our own cold outreach as well. It would be a silly agency if we didn't go our own cold outreach. So those are our two, and we're Instantly partner, so we get a lot of leads from them. You know, I'm pretty active in the cold outreach community group, so we get leads from there. So there's sort of 4 ways that we generate our own leads. Two that we can effectively control, which is the organic side of things and the cold outreach side. I'm a big fan of being able to control the leads, and that's a better way. In terms of the process, it's funny, if I'm speaking to a sort of a UK prospect, it's probably a couple of calls. If I'm speaking to US, Canada people, it's normally a 1 call close. You know, I love working with people from anywhere, but when you speak to people and they kind of know what they want, they understand the commitment, they understand that actually it might take a couple of months to get something going properly in the way that you want it to go, then they're great people to work with. And then once they're signed up, setup fee, contract out, Slack channels, onboarding process begins.
Nice.
It's super, super simple.
That's awesome. And do you do setup fee and then ongoing live go into the monthly, or is it just all up front, the initial?
Yeah, no. When campaigns go live, it moves on to the monthly retainer.
Okay, awesome. I think that's also a really big thing probably to highlight for individuals that are getting into it. If you separate the setup fee out of the retainer, then it actually gives you a couple of weeks, because as I saw, people were like, on month one, where is everything? And if you can take the pressure out of it, the setup having to be done in month one and sits outside of that, it's a standout, I think.
And you control the setup time. We typically have a two week setup time, occasionally 3 week setup time, depending on how long copy gets approved. But if you wanted to have a 1 month setup time, then you have a 1 month setup time. That's fine. I've heard people do 3 month setups, which is a little bit mad, but people try it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And now in terms of like, you said you onboarding email into Slack setup, like I'd love to just probably hear a little bit about that process and like the fulfillment delivery process. So do you want to talk me through what that looks like, just from like a bird's eye view? And just explain that.
Yeah, so once the client signs up and they sort of do the onboarding process, we then go and write the copy. This is all within that setup time. We get we cold email specifically, obviously, we get our clients to purchase domains. It's far better if they own the domains than you do for multiple reasons. But also the main reason is that in 2 years' time, they can still own that domain rather than you messing around trying to transfer it out if you ever need to. Once the copy's written, again, all in Notion, right? Notion is fantastic, one of the best tools I've discovered in recent years. They approve it, they comment on it. Some clients just want to change everything, and then you have to look at that and say, okay, what are they changing and why are they changing it? If they're changing it to make it sound, and this is quite a common thing, is they've done sales newsletters, so they think that's what it should sound like. It's like, no, cold email is about, and LinkedIn outreach is about a human to human connection. That's the aim of the game. That's how you want your copy to sound. So we write the copy, get it all approved, spin it all up so it's got all different variations to help deliverability, and then campaigns go live. So once campaigns go live, obviously the team have scraped the data or whatever needs to be scraped, formulated the campaign, set up the timings, all of that stuff. Like I said, I'm fortunate that I've built a team. So I've got operational team now, I've got reply handling team, data team, all in-house here. So effectively they handle all of that, which is fantastic. And then we inform the client when it goes live. Those first couple of days, you might get we had a client go live last week. They got their lead within the first sort of 4 hours of a campaign going live, and it was like,
that's
oh,
awesome.
This is great. Yeah, but then you also know that they're probably not going to get a lead for a couple of days after that, for example. And you're like, oh, damn it. But it's just the way. And once we class a lead as someone that has replied to an email or a message saying, hey, no, want to chat. We then send the call link, so we handle the reply handling as well. So effectively, when a lead goes onto a lead sheet, the client still doesn't have to do anything. That means that they've been sent a call link. Occasionally, especially if you're going after the US market, you get replies like, hey, no, call me on this number. And that's it. Yeah. And they're the worst replies because you're like, when, where, do you want to call me at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., whatever. So again, this is the benefit of having the communication with your clients, is that you can just ping them on Slack and say, hey, this lead's come in, they've asked for a call, when are you around? And we can sort of formulate that time. Some clients are just like, ping me the numbers and I'll keep calling them until they pick up, which is great. And then you've got the tweaking element. So when campaigns go live, you're tracking open rates for maybe the first couple of weeks. Yeah. And then after that, you're tweaking anything that needs tweaking, whether the copy needs tweaking, whether the targeting needs tweaking. Sometimes it doesn't need as much tweaking as you think. Sometimes it doesn't need any tweaking, which is great. But if you're not getting those hits after, a couple of thousand emails, start looking at why you're not getting those hits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's often when you think that, when you have that conversation, you then get a hit and you're like, oh, does that mean I have to, is it working now, or do I still need to tweak? But one of the biggest downsides with cold email, I'll say, is like the data side of things isn't as accurate as LinkedIn, for example, because you can see connection requests. So how many people replied to first connection? How many people replied to other messages? You think about cold email data where you've got open rates, which if it's high, it's high. Our average open rate is between sort of 70 and 80%, which is pretty high in terms of industry standard. And I tell this to prospects, and then I immediately say, but take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Because, if you use Apple Mail on your phone, they open and close the email before you look at it anyway. Yeah. So you've got to take it with a pinch. So obviously, if it's a high number, it's a high number. So do that. And then, your reply percent as well, people, whether it's 2%, 3%, 1%, got to figure out, is that good for this niche and this channel? I think people get lost in the whole like industry standard. Yeah. And it's like, well, actually, if you're going after, I don't know, manufacturing companies in Texas and you're getting a 2% reply rate, that's probably pretty good, because they're quite hard niche to go after.
And in terms of like the way to be able to manage the campaign overview with your team executing on it, just before we jump back in and go like into more detail on the campaign aspect, what are you using? Is it just all Notion and you have tasks just executed in there, or do you have like a project management thing? Like how
we use Notion for everything. Like we created Notion to track projects, track campaigns. We put our reporting into Notion so clients can see it. Some clients have, like I said before, we use Instantly. So some clients have access to their Instantly account, or our Instantly account that we give them. Some clients don't. They don't really care about it. They just want to care about the reports. So as long as we're relaying that data in a easy manner, it's good. I did look at some tools this morning actually to look at reporting in a little bit more of a funky way.
There was some interesting things that I think Jesse Ouellette shared, like an extension that you can just like scrape. So there's some cool things out there.
Do you want it to look pretty, or do you just care about the numbers? That's the thing.
So going back into the campaigns, I want to break down like how you approach taking an ICP and turning it into a list. Like talk me through like that process. Do you have a form to be able to collect that info?
Yeah. So it's all on our onboarding form. Okay. So our onboarding form goes through exactly who they want to target, the roles that they want to target, examples of people that they want to target. So we ask for LinkedIn profiles of people that they want to, like examples of people that they want to talk to, locations, industries, company size, revenue, all those factors that come into a good search, we pull from the client. Same with the copy, all of those sort of key points that they want. And then on my onboarding call with them after they fill out that form, I'm just clarifying exactly who they want to go after. And they might, and changing some things. So they might say, oh, we only want to go after a company size of 100, for example. It's like, okay, cool, but why? Why not go after a company size of 300 or 400 or 500 or even less, right? So it's just clarifying exactly who they want to go after. We segment our campaigns as well. So sort of every search term or nearly every location is a fresh campaign. And that's just because we want to have control over what's working and what's not. So we don't really want to run one campaign that's the whole of the US and this big wide search, because even though you can see from the replies what's working, it's far easier if you can have a quick 20-second look at something and say, okay, that campaign's working or not.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And then, like you said, you can start to be able to segment, and you can scale up from there. In terms of like as well, one just takeaway from that, which I think is really relevant, is take with a pinch of salt what the client says is who they want to target, and use your brain to be able to perhaps go, it's worth maybe changing that or testing another niche, because I especially would just take it for what they say, and then the next thing you know, it doesn't work, and they've said that, and then they're frustrated as well that it didn't work, and we should have jumped in as an expert to be able to go, hang on a second, we're going to trial this in parallel. So I think that's really important off the bat, to test multiple different titles. Yeah,
100%. If you have a web design client, for example, and they say, hey, we want to go after ecom people, or like a paid ad person, a paid ad client, and they say that we want to get an ecom client, as a cold outreach expert, you know that e-com is one of the most flooded cold outreach genres out there. But it can still work. So it's kind of like, okay, we can do that, and we're try and be different than others, but also let's think about other campaigns that we can run as well. I always say to my clients, like, what are your low-hanging fruit campaigns? So your bread and butter campaigns, ones that you know that if they get on a call with you, you're going to close them. And then what's another campaign that is a challenge campaign, or like, I love to have, you know, something, maybe someone that you've never worked with, or you've always thought, oh, I'd love to get into that industry, or I'd love to get into that company size. Like cold email, cold outreach is the ideal tool to be able to go after people like that, because it's no skin off your back either. So if you're sending emails, you may as well send emails to the challenging people.
I love that. That's like your business, like coach kind of training mindset. You're like, what? Yeah, think about your ideal scenario. Like, that's awesome. Like that, I haven't seen that before in the way, like, you know, to suggest that. So it's really, really cool. And in terms of messaging and taking someone's positioning, how are you approaching that? Are you creating angles, and like, what is an angle to you? Yeah, just talk me through that process to craft the steps and approaching, taking their offer, their problem, and a call to action.
Turn it into some actual formable copy. That's often the hard bit. And that's why I have the call with them after, because they can fill out the form, and sometimes they write one line, and it's like, okay, I can't work with one line. I need to do more than that. But for me, copy wise, I kind of live by a rule that your first email, nice, short, sweet, to the point, and a nice hook. Depending on but again, I'm going to like contradict myself here, depending on the industry. So, you know, the law SaaS company that we've just launched, an AI SaaS company, their first emails are a little bit longer because they're targeting lawyers. So they're used to reading slightly longer text. So you've got to think about the sales psychology of who you're targeting and what are they kind of used to in their space of the world. But rule of thumb is shorter messages typically work better with a really nice hook. Do you need to be ultra personalized or not? I'm probably a little bit of someone that is saying the opposite of what most people are saying. I actually don't think you need to be super personalized. I don't think if you email me saying, hey, Steven, I saw on LinkedIn that you used to work in the yachting industry. That must have been amazing. I don't care about that, right? And nor does your prospect. All I care about is, what does this email serve me, and how am I going to get something out of it? If it's an email that I think, okay, they've hit the nail on the head there, that's a problem I probably have, that's a solution I'm kind of looking for, I'm going to have that conversation.
So it's still personalization. It's just not personalizing in a way that's personal to you. It's personalization based off the problem, which creates relevancy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a different
industry problems. Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, then you've got from there, you've got the follow-ups. You know, follow-ups are a great way to add in your case studies, build your credibility, take a slightly more unique approach. Don't fall back into like 2015 cold email and send a picture of your dog and say, hey, will you reply to Fluffy if you won't reply to me?
Or with like a photo on like a cup.
Or, you know, I guess because I'm in this world, and same with you, you see every technique possible, and some of them you just think, you know, they just don't work very well. And then people brag about these replies and going, hey, and the reply is sort of like, oh my God, I never replied to cold emails, but I loved your email. And they've replied to the dog, for example. It's like, yeah, but is that a lead? Or is that just someone saying, oh, that was a funny email?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking, when going back to 2015, emailing as, or 2014 as like a young sales rep, adding like a Spider-Man coming out of like the ceiling being like, are you there? And that was my last one. You know, that worked back in the day.
They were so good.
Now no more.
You know, but that will come back, right? I'm sure that will come back.
And okay, if we go into how long are you typically running a campaign for, and how many contacts you have to have within a campaign to be able to go, this was a fair test to understand whether this is working or not?
Yeah, good question. So we typically say between 2,000 to 3,000 contacts, first like unique contacts into a campaign is a good testing size. In terms of timing, that could be anywhere from a month in terms of how many follow-ups you have to maybe 3 months. Realistically, if they haven't replied after maybe the first couple of follow-ups, then it's a good chance that they won't reply. But again, cold email is all about timing. So we typically write maybe like 5, 6, or 7 follow-ups, which is again longer than most. Because I know we've seen people reply to the 7th follow-up and just be like, listen, I've been busy for the last couple of months, but this is now the perfect time. And then you can do smarter things, change the subjects on some follow-up so it comes in as a new email address, and reuse data as well. So we always recommend for domains that maybe you buy 8 domains that are, like wearegrowleady.com, and then have a couple of domains that are just, coldemailexperts.com, right? Something like that. So then you can go after the same data that haven't responded or haven't opened or whatever the case may be with a different domain name and maybe a different sender name. And the likelihood that they will make a connection is low. You find that actually people very rarely go and check out your website or anything. Again, this is another thing that you mentioned before in terms of people trying to get everything ready. With cold outreach, people are often only going to check you out as they book the call, or like after they've booked the call and they go, oh, I've got a call with Steven tomorrow. I'll just have a quick look at their website. So use the data to your advantage.
That's really, really interesting. And then just talking about like best performing approaches, what's working in your world when it comes to the approach? I'm seeing a lot of conversation around using lead magnets as a hook, offering something of value. But yeah, it's just interesting to hear, what do you think? And what do those calls to actions look like that actually help instigate replies?
Yeah. So one that never really fails is obviously just the direct to a call. Can we have a call next week? Those kind of things. Depending on industry, so we have a SEO agency, and we do the Loom hook. So can I record a Loom? And that gets a ton of replies. It's like, yeah, sure, send me a Loom. My preference is not to send people to sales pages, again, because of that human to human connection that we're trying to create. As soon as you send someone to a sales page, it becomes less of a, oh, I'm just emailing Noah, to, oh, this is a sales email and they're trying to put me into this funnel and go from there. But you've just got to think about what is again, comes back to that sales psychology with that industry. What works for those industries? What are they used to? How are they used to dealing with things within their inbox? Because the email inbox is not going anywhere. It's been around for years, and it's probably not really going to be replaced. It's where 90% of your business is still done within your email. It's where you see your contracts. It's where you see a little Stripe email saying, hey, you've been paid. All these other things that happen in your inbox, it's become a safe space. People expect some spam. People expect a cold email. So you've got to be the one that cold emails in that really human way, so that they open it and they feel safe to reply. They feel comfortable in replying.
And then in terms of like a framework to follow, like what is your kind of traditional like framework that you kind of take? Obviously it differs, but it would just be really interesting to understand how you're approaching that initial problem statement. And then maybe, I don't know if you even do that. Like, do you move to a solution afterwards, then a hook? Yeah, it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, it does vary. So when in the first email, like I said, really nice and short, we want to go in with with the problem that we often see. If a client has case studies, then that's, they're fantastic. I call them one-line case studies. We helped X do Y, and I'd love to tell you exactly how we did that. Like, that works great for us. We email, like I said, we got a random commercial cleaning company, so we email commercial cleaning companies because they're great clients, and we say, hey, we helped commercial cleaning generate 50 leads in 40 days. And completely accurate statement, and that's enough for them to say, oh, okay, how am I doing that? And then we might add a hook of saying, PS, we don't use any ads, because I know that they're getting emailed by ad guys saying, hey, I'll run ads, right? So then it's like, oh, wait a minute, so you're getting leads but you're not running ads. How am I doing this? Because again, once you're in this space of agency, or whether you're a freelancer, whether you're a consultant in the cold outreach space, you very quickly get into a bubble and you think, oh, everyone knows about cold outreach. Everyone knows about cold email. Everyone knows about LinkedIn outreach. The truth is that most people aren't doing it. Most people, and if they are doing it, most people are doing it badly. So it's your chance to be able to think, okay, if I know what sort of emails they're getting, can I contradict those emails and almost have that
Pattern break.
break in that,
Yeah.
pattern break in their reading for them to go, oh, you're not running ads, but you're still getting leads. How are you doing that?
Yeah. And like the way you just said, like a PS, we don't run ads. It's so conversational that it's actually like you're
Yeah.
speaking to them as opposed to I'm sending you something and asking if you need my service, you know, like that's
And
which is,
it's like a cheeky hook as well, isn't it? It's
yeah,
kind of just saying it's like if we met a networking event and I was like, and as I walked away, I went, oh, by the way, we don't do any ads or whatever.
yeah.
You know, that and then that would make you go, that's different because you spoke to 5 ad guys that same day and they all promise you that they can get your ROI increasing and your click cost down. And it was almost like they're exhausted of those conversations. So as a cold email person, you got a slightly good edge on that.
Yeah. And going into worst performing campaigns, it would just be interesting to hear if you have any lessons and like just think about like at what point did you pivot when a campaign wasn't working? It doesn't have to be the worst, but just like what was the indicator and then what did you do to be able to change? And
it happens. Listen, it happens. I've had the case where I've said to clients like, I don't think this is working, so I don't think this is going to work out, and removed them. Gone our separate ways, and they really respect that as well. Rather than me saying, your contract is for 6 months, 3 months in, not much has happening. I'm just going to say, listen, let's stop it now. Rather than I could sit there and take their money for another 3 months. And lots of people would, but consciously, I'm not that sort of person to I would feel so bad doing that.
Yeah.
But when you see they're not working and the factors of seeing that, at the end of the day, it's like, are the leads coming in? No matter what other data you look at, if the lead is coming in, then that campaign is working in some form or another.
Yeah.
Then you've got to go, okay, can I get more of these leads? Or is this kind of like where this industry is at as well? Because that's another thing. Like some of our campaigns they might get 10 leads a month, but the clients are really happy with those because for them that's still a lot of money that they're banking and putting in their pipeline. Again, it comes back to that whole like, don't go for the shiny object of 300 leads a month and you'll be winning. But when you see a campaign that perhaps isn't performing, my thing is, the first thing is like, is it the right data? Typically it is. Like we've very rarely got the wrong data, if ever, really. But always check, is this the right pet data? Is this the right person? I would also test in going down or upper management level. So if you're going for sort of C-suite level, maybe go down one and go for, top manager level, because they might not get as many cold emails either than the C-suite guys or girls, and they might be a bit more open to it. Second is your copy, obviously. So check your copy, subject lines, all that kind of stuff.
But then, like you said, if you're getting like a lead flow in, then it's just about understanding like, like why is it not converting? Where's that problem that comes into play there? We actually had back at COA a company which wanted to contact on-site project managers for residential construction, and they were not replying, and we didn't understand why. And then we needed to think it was you need to get in your head of like, you're a project manager on site in a construction site every day. You're going to reply.
They're busy.
Exactly. They replied and they wouldn't reply for 2 weeks. They're busy. So you have to actually really think about how that person operates in day to day, as opposed to just going, it's not working.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what comes down to that. That's why the onboarding form is really handy. So you can see it. And realistically, even before that, when you're on the prospect call, you're figuring out, you're asking, who do they want to go after? Who do they want to target? And if a client says to me that sort of example, I would openly say to them, okay, it's possible, but it will be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be a slower process because exactly what we just said. They're on site. They're not designed to sit there and look at their emails all day. They're designed to just be there, and they're probably checking their emails at 7 o'clock at night, and they're only looking for things that need to be actioned rather than looking at this cold email of this random person that's just emailed them. And then that comes back to what I said before in terms of spreading the risk in terms of going, okay, we can do those campaigns, but what other campaigns should we do as well?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, going back to what you said. Yeah, what are the ideal verticals? You haven't thought about testing this offer on. Let's have a look
Yeah,
and see this as an experiment. We're gonna not just do what you want. And yeah,
yeah,
that's really, really sound advice, because if you just give them an onboarding form and go, who do you want to target? And you don't challenge that and
yeah,
have a call, you're gonna just be running based off what they said. And then it's gonna shoot you in the foot 2 months down the line if it doesn't
100%.
work. So it's
Yeah,
worth
and then
doing
this,
that.
you're gonna end up creating a really frustrating industry, like frustrating agency for yourself, because you
Yeah.
end up working with a bunch of clients that aren't performing as well as you can do. Like we do quite a lot of work in the recruitment space,
Mm.
and recruiting is quite a hard one to go for. And once the difference in a good recruiting client and a bad recruiting client is if they understand the sales process, if they understand that actually if they close, like we have one client that the value for them closing is something like 35k, right? So for if they got us for a whole year and they only got one close a quarter, they've still 3x'd their money, or
Yeah.
well, probably 4x actually, more than that. So you've got to have those conversations with clients. You don't want clients that are having the conversation, and I feel like this happens a lot as well. Is if clients, prospects will get on a call and they say, "I need to have leads,"
Mm.
right? Because otherwise, you don't want to get a client from a place of desperation.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then what will happen is day one campaigns go live, day two they're emailing you being like, "Hey, no, where's my leads?
Yeah.
I need leads." You want people that understand the process.
Yeah, and you sometimes, to be able to generate cash flow, do say yes to, at the beginning, in the earliest days I can remember, I can help you because I genuinely can, but then
Yeah.
realize that
Yeah, you
this
say yes to
person
everyone,
is,
don't you, in the early
yeah,
days?
but they're too invested in the day,
Yeah.
and it's day two, and they're demanding, and they are almost have a glaze over their eyes to not take a step back and go, hang on, this is a methodical process. So that's why
Mm.
personally I enjoyed working with individuals which were already running a level of outreach. They
Yeah.
were already
Yeah.
doing something, and they were seeing this as an additional activity to be able to enable them to supplement their lead flow or generate a lower cost acquisition, as opposed to it
Yeah.
being their only acquisition channel and having not yet gone into any of the channels to outreach.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
If you're getting on prospect calls and they're in that position where they're not doing much and this is maybe their first thing they're doing, you got to manage that in an appropriate way. Whether that is you don't take them on because actually they can't afford you realistically. Like if they need one of the leads to close in the first month to be able to afford the rest, then they don't really have enough runway to afford your services.
Yeah.
Or you take them, so you challenge them in a different way and maybe offer them the LinkedIn servers rather than the cold email servers.
Yeah.
Or if you're running ads, you offer them an ad. Like, what is the
Yeah.
best solution for them and their budget? And if they don't have a budget or the budget that suits you, build the network. Like, me and you, we have a really good network of cold outreach people. So if someone says, hey, if my budget is $500, like that's way below our budget, but I know there's people out there that I can go, okay, there might be that, have a conversation with this person.
Yeah.
They might be
Yeah.
able to help.
Yeah, I really like that world, like that we're all helping each other. It's a really good space that we can hand over leads, all these different things as well. It's nice to have that lean on. So
Yeah.
yeah. How did you go about training your team to be able to become experts at understanding how to write copy or build out lists? I've always struggled with that. I hire people
Yeah.
from everywhere in the world, and I, again, like you, settled on bringing someone in-house with maybe transferable skill set, but yeah, how did you do that?
Yeah, it's a tricky one building a team. We've brought on people that haven't worked out and they've left, and Dan, my ops guy, he's been with me pretty much since day one, which is amazing because he is a great guy, and then he's helped train the team as well. In terms of copy, that's one of the things that I haven't hired for. I still write all the copy myself for all our clients. I think that's one of the hardest ones to replace, and then the sales process as well, like getting someone to do sales calls, like that's my next challenge.
Yeah.
But in terms of data and things, it's just about knowing the time frame of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Yes, there's transferable skills. Yes, anyone can just go on Apollo, do a search term, pull a list, clean it. but I wanted to build a team that could scrape directories, that could clear, scrape Facebook or whatever, scrape wherever pretty much. And it's taken a long time to make sure that the team are really confident in that. But it is down to just training them, doing videos, creating SOPs, making it so that you have a safe space for them to ask questions as well, because that's the one thing. Like, we've had that before when we brought on someone, they felt that they couldn't really ask questions. And that's our own fault by not allowing them to say, like, listen, there is no wrong answer. Just ask a question. I don't care if someone says, how do you click export in Apollo?
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Yeah, I'll show you. But if you ask, if you keep asking me the questions and you're not looking at the SOPs and, you're not having that conversation with the team as well, then that's normally the issue, if people aren't communicating. But build that culture that people want to help each other. Example, last night, a client messaged at maybe 10 p.m. my time. Obviously, I have a lot of US clients, so it's early for them. I was on the date with my wife at the time, so I was like, yeah, cool, I'll jump on this in a bit. It wasn't anything major, but by the time I was done with dinner, my team had already taken care of it. It's
that's awesome.
That's a nice reminder for me to be like, okay, yeah, I've got a good team.
That's really, really cool. And so how did you approach, like, actually, what was the first, like, person you hired or identified problem that needed to be taken off of you to enable you to free up your time to do other things?
Yeah, so the first hire we got was, I would probably say campaign management. Yeah. Setting up campaigns, making sure they're all spaced out correctly, handling the replies. So Dan was effectively the guy that did that at the start. And then from there, we've just almost like removed roles from him. And then he's now the ops guy to sort of handle all of that side of things. So he's then trained up people in the reply handling and the data handling and the campaign handling. But that was the reason I decided to make that the first thing to hire for, is just because you're at that stage where you need clients and you want to be focusing your time on getting leads and managing your current clients. So if I knew that campaigns were being set up in the correct way, obviously, you would be checking and double checking and all that kind of stuff. But if you knew that there was someone that was jumping on replies, if you knew that someone that if you saw like an inbox disconnect, someone else caught it before you, then those little time savers allow more of a mental energy than anything, allow you to focus on, okay, what does my client need today? What does my client need this week? How many sales calls am I getting on this week? And it allows you to then grow out. I'm a big fan of, and this gets said a lot, but like, hire for your weaknesses. And that's one of mine. Like, I don't enjoy, or I didn't enjoy sitting there setting up campaigns and stuff like that admin work. But build a great team around you so that and they perform better than I was doing anyway. And that's what's great, is that they're now, we're all still in touch with everything that needs to be in touch with, but they're on it, which is great. And it allows me to have full confidence in my team. Do we make mistakes sometimes? Yeah, of course we do. Like, every human on this planet makes mistakes, whether that's like a double spacing in the copy or, a variation mistake, whatever it is. We catch it pretty quickly. And it's very rare that nothing fundamental has ever really happened in the big scheme of things. They might be fundamental to the clients at the time, a simple human error. But if you actually zoom out of the situation, it's like, nah, that's no big deal.
That's very interesting, and like, it's really, really cool. I think like the biggest thing is to being able to free up your time to a degree, so you could start to focus on generating new revenue, bringing in new clients, because that's how this creates life in the agency. And if you 100%. Are signing, working on it, it's just an endless cycle of not being able to get out of that, and that can be a challenge.
This is what you see with a lot of one-man bands, right, and freelancers, is that all their time is sucked into doing the things that take the most time, which is campaign management, lead handling, all this kind of stuff, when actually they should be focusing on client management and making sure that things are performing in the way they should be.
Yeah, no, that's really, really valuable. And then just in terms of challenges, like when scaling this out, what type of challenges have you experienced like over the past few years? And like what are some of those learnings that you've had along the way through facing them?
Yeah, so I guess in the earlier days, the team aspect was a big challenge in
Yep.
terms of that how you scale and build a team at almost like the consistent space or the consistent time, sorry. So, you know, you could if you close 5 clients in a week, that's suddenly a big increased output that the team need to perform. So I've always been on the fence that we are overstaffed and sort of always have capacity. That allows us to make sure that we will always be able to say yes to a client in terms of bringing a new client on. And we can also then train up a lot quicker now than we did before. So
Yep.
before it might take, I don't know, 3 months to train someone up in a like to make sure they're fully comfortable. Now it's 4 weeks so that they're fully comfortable, and that's again because we've got SOPs, we've got really good team in place to help that happen. The other struggle is, you touched on it before, but cash flow, right? Cash flow for
Yep.
any business is a struggle. Whether you're looking at the bank, you're like, oh, this has been a great month, and then all your subscriptions get taken out, all your staff costs get taken out, all these other factors, and you're like, okay, what level do I need to be at? And I know everyone chases that 10K a month, but when you hit the 10K a month, you're like, it's not actually a
Yeah.
big milestone, right? It's quite a wake up call because it's such a
Yeah.
buzzword.
And you're like, hang on,
And
I
then
can't do a lot with the 10K a month. Then it's
yeah, it's like,
20K.
now I need, now it's 20K,
Yeah.
then it's 30K, then it's 40K, and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But also think about practically, like, what sort of agency do you want to run? Like, do you want to run an agency with hundreds and thousands of clients and you're fully working on it, or you're fully in it all the time? Do you want to run a lifestyle agency where you have a couple of clients that are paying 10-20 grand a month, but your lifestyle is pretty good? What sort of agency? For me, I'm GrowLeady for in the next couple of years. We're obviously going to continue with our cold doing, like, we're pretty much, we're dominating pretty hard in terms of our organic side of things and cold outreach agency world. And that will continue to grow. But we're also building internal brands. We're
Yeah.
building brands that can be fully managed by us, that are fully fulfilled by us, because it's building assets into your business that are allow you to do more things in the future.
So what would be the future then? When you say building brands, is that building different pillars and different areas within this to be able to create a
Yeah,
real
so
go
we're
on.
built. So at the moment, we're building like almost like an SEO agency type output,
Yep.
that run our own websites, that build that that are lead gen websites, and that we can then sell those leads on as well. So it's like a slightly different lead gen space. We also want to get into acquiring. So we want to start acquiring other agencies, acquiring other like pillars of different industries. As long as they can fit within our framework, then we can happy. Like when
Yep.
you nail cold outreach, it's such a special tool because it effectively means that you could go to any struggling business, and if they've got a great system in place, even better, but they're not generating leads, then you can plug into that system and help generate leads. So you can turn businesses
Yep.
around. And that's sort of my 2 to 4 year plan now, because very rarely you hear of agency exits. Let's be frank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless they've got like the fancy offers in London with the 20 staff or
Yep.
100 staff and all,
Yep.
VC funded, all that kind of stuff. They get the exits, right? But the majority of people listening to this can run maybe 100K a month agency, but they still won't probably get an exit, because where is the exit really from?
Yep.
So you got to think, okay, how am I going to build assets into this business that we can then flip, so we can build
Yeah.
some assets that we can just flip, and what else can we build to create a stronger foundation, so that, listen, if Google turns around tomorrow, or Outlook turns around tomorrow, or whatever, and just says you can only ever email your mum now, cold email is going to be a little bit shaken up. So you got to put yourself in that position to make sure that you've got
Yeah.
different avenues of growth.
Yeah, I think like there's so many things that you said there is such value, like the ability to be able to take acquisition and understand that you can take businesses, acquire other agencies, make them more successful, and almost build like a group type of environment, which
Yeah, that's it.
increases your value as an agency and does enable you to be able to get acquired or flip businesses, or just really see this as a larger legacy as opposed to just a business which is creating recurring revenue up to,
That's
like
the
you
plan.
said, that 100K mark. So that's super interesting. Really, really cool to be able to speak to you. And you just whilst we have a few last questions, I'd just love to hear, like, what do you think's next? You touched on just like, yeah, cold email could get taken away. LinkedIn is still here, but the volume has definitely gone down as opposed to where initially it was, right? We were at 100 connections per day. We're now at 20 and having to add multiple profiles to be able to do it in a more unique way. So yeah, where do you see this moving towards in the next channel, or what's next in evolving the play to not have to rely on just these pillars, LinkedIn and email?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it is always change. You've got one side of the fence where you can say, well, you've just got to pivot on every change. So, you know, like you said, LinkedIn, multiple profiles, cold email. You know, when we first started cold emailing, we would only have a couple of domains and put maybe 10 email addresses on each domain and send, 100, 150, 200 emails per email address. Now it's 30 per email address, similar to LinkedIn. So you just got to always be pivoting in terms of what's next. That can become exhausting as well for a lot of people. Like, they don't want to play catch up. So then you've got to think, okay, for what other things do you want to be doing? Do you want to be chasing the next things? Or do you want to be doing like TikTok, Instagram, like TikTok DMing, right? Or Twitter DMing, or whatever that case may be. Personally, I think I do truly believe that email will always be around. There's nothing that I've seen out there that is even close to replacing people using emails, realistically. So that's always a safe space for me in terms of being able to just pivot with the times and figure out what's working and what's not. And listen, if it all goes Pete Tong, then we'll just go back to our consulting, earn a good couple of grand a month and go live in Thailand or something and live the good life.
We can all go there.
Yeah, exactly.
If it all goes Pete Tong,
and then do a course, then create a course about how to live in Thailand.
Yes, that sounds good. That sounds good. And yeah, like you said, all of the businesses, if we look at like the evolution of like tech, which I come from, like SaaS, they have sales teams of hundreds of sales individuals, and they're relying on cold email every day. Google and Outlook and these individuals can change the rule sets, but they're not going to throttle that, because it would be stupid from a commercial aspect to be able to not enable these businesses to engage. It definitely doesn't make sense. So, to wrap up, I wanted to be able to just ask you a question from our last speaker, our last interview, which was Ben Hayward. And he has a question which he wanted to ask you. And then I'm going to ask you after that to ask a question to our next guest, to be able to make some nice continuation here. So do you see lead gen being the end goal of your business journey, or is this a stepping stone into something else? And if so, what is that? And you kind of answered that before, but I guess just it'd be interesting to hear that answer.
Yeah, kind of already answered that, which is funny.
Yeah.
But for me, lead gen is always going to be like, if your business doesn't have lead gen, then your business is going to fail. Flat out. So where that lead gen comes from is what you focus on. For me, like we just said, email, doing a lot on SEO at the moment. So it's about trying to get the stability in your business to get it where you want it to be. In terms of like, is it a stepping stone? I don't think lead gen is a stepping stone. I think it is one of the key foundations of any business. And it's just going to enable, like, since I've really learned cold email, and I've always done cold outreach, but it was always for myself. Since I've been doing it for other people, it's like the openness of where it can go is crazy. Like the ability that it gives you of what you can do is just nuts. And I think knowing that skill, you can always earn money. You can always get something. If you learn that skill well enough, then you will always be okay.
Yeah, no. So it's a tool not a stepping stone is the
Yeah,
key
there you go.
takeaway there. So what do you want to ask our next speaker? We've actually got Eric Nowalski, who's, kicking up some noise at the moment. And yeah, what do you want to ask him? Do you have a question?
Yeah, he's a very interesting. I really like him. Very interesting guy. I would say, I'm from a founder's point of view. I would love to know how he manages the growth that he's had.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, he has blown up recently, and how has he managed it from a founder's point of view, in terms of the changing of the businesses, the changing of the of perception of him as well. You know, he's almost he's basically a household name in a lot of places now. So yeah, that's what I'd love to know.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm going to clip it and I'll send it to you after he answers that as well.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, Steven, it has been a pleasure having you on the Lead Gen Hustler show and hearing the story of GrowLeady. And for our listeners that are looking to be able to, follow your journey or hear more about you, where can they find you?
So connect with me on LinkedIn, Steven Haggerty, obviously. You can book a call with me through the website, growleady.io. And I'm very easily found. So if you want to find me, you can come and find me.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you so much. And thanks for all the listeners for tuning in.
See you guys. Bye.